She woke up before the sun not because she wanted to but because silence has a way of calling single mothers awake, the kind of silence that carries responsibility instead of peace. The room was still dark, the air heavy with yesterday and tomorrow pressed together in one breath. Her hand reached for the phone, not to check messages, not to scroll, not to escape, but to check the time, because time was no longer something she owned, it was something she survived. She lay there for a moment, listening to the soft breathing of her child in the next room. That sound was the only proof she needed that getting up mattered. No one tells you that motherhood can feel lonely even when love fills every corner. No one warns you that strength arrives quietly disguised as routine. She stood up slowly, careful not to wake the floor, the house, the memories. The mirror caught her reflection, tired eyes, hair pulled back, without thought, face holding stories she never planned to live. She did not recognize the woman she had become, yet she trusted her. There was a time when mornings meant shared coffee conversations, plans whispered between two people who believed life would be fair. That life ended without ceremony. No goodbye that made sense. Just an absence that echoed louder each day. Now there was breakfast to make, shoes to find, lunches to pack, worries to hide. She moved through the kitchen like muscle memory, knew the steps even when her heart felt heavy. The coffee tasted bitter, but she drank it anyway because some days bitterness was the only thing that proved she was still awake. Her child padded into the room, hair messy, eyes half open, carrying a small blanket that smelled like safety. In that moment, everything paused. The world did not need her to be strong right then. It just needed her to be there. She smiled, the kind of smile that comes from practice, not ease. She kissed a forehead, whispered "Good morning, love," and meant it more than any promise she had ever made. Outside, the sky slowly changed color, as if reminding her that endings always make space for something new, even if it takes time to see it. She watched her child eat cereal and talk about dreams that made no sense, and all the sense in the world. She remembered the day she became a single mother. Not the paperwork. Not the arguments. Not the explanations she had to repeat to family, friends, strangers. But the moment she realized no one else was coming to help. That realization was terrifying and clarifying. It stripped life down to essentials. Food, safety, love, endurance. The first months were a blur of survival. Bills that did not wait. Nights that felt endless. Tears she cried in bathrooms, cars, showers, anywhere that would not witness her breaking. She learned how to be quiet about her pain. Not because she was ashamed, but because explaining took energy she no longer had. People said, "You are so strong." They said, "I do not know how you do it." They said, "Everything happens for a reason." And she nodded, because correcting them would have taken more strength than pretending. What they did not see were the moments between. The panic when the numbers did not add up. The fear of sickness, because missing work was not an option. The loneliness that settled in after bedtime when the house went still again. At night, she replayed choices, conversations, what ifs. She wondered if love had failed her or if the world had simply changed its mind. She wondered if her child would someday blame her for a life shaped by absence. But every morning she woke up again. Not because she felt brave, but because love demanded it. Single motherhood did not arrive with applause. It arrived with exhaustion. With grocery lists. With silent car rides after long days. Yet somewhere along the way she noticed something different. She noticed that fear no longer controlled every decision. She noticed that she could fix things she once believed required someone else. She learned how to assemble furniture. How to negotiate with schools. How to stretch meals into memories. How to answer hard questions with honesty wrapped in hope. Her child began to see her not just as a mother, but as a constant. A presence that did not disappear when things became difficult. There were days she failed. Days when patience ran out. Days when she raised her voice and immediately regretted it. Days when she wished for just 1 hour to stop being needed. And then there were days when her child laughed so freely it felt like a gift she did not deserve. Days when small hands held hers as if anchoring her to the world. Days when she realized she was building something quietly powerful. She stopped waiting for rescue. Stopped believing her story needed fixing. She started believing it needed honoring. Single mothers are not broken families. They are rebuilt lives. She did not choose this path, but she chose how to walk it. Every sacrifice became a brick. Every tear became water for growth. Every lonely night shaped a woman who could carry more than she ever imagined. And still she worried. She worried about money, time, future. She worried about being enough. But love answered her doubts in small ways. In drawings left on the fridge. In arms wrapped around her waist. In the word mom spoken like a prayer. She understood then that strength does not roar. It whispers, keep going. And she did. She learned that the world watches single mothers differently. With curiosity, with judgment, with assumptions disguised as concern. At school meetings, she noticed the pause when forms asked for a second parent. The blank space felt louder than any question. She learned to smile through it. To answer softly. To carry explanations like invisible bags on her shoulders. Strangers felt entitled to opinions. You should remarry. A child needs a father. That must be hard for you. As if she did not already know. As if her nights were not filled with the weight of those sentences. Some days the judgment slipped under her skin. Not because she believed it. But because she was tired. Tired of proving. Tired of correcting. Tired of standing tall when all she wanted was to sit down and rest. She watched couples argue in grocery store aisles and wondered how something so heavy could still be envied. She listened to friends complain about shared responsibilities and felt both sympathy and a quiet ache. At work, she pushed herself harder than anyone else. Not for praise, but for safety. Stability became her love language. A paycheck meant peace, even if only temporary. There were moments when the pressure cracked her open. The car breaking down. The school calling. The bank balance blinking red. Those moments came without warning and left her breathless. One night after putting her child to bed, she sat on the kitchen floor. The lights off. The house finally quiet. Her back against the cabinet. And she let herself cry without sound. Not dramatic tears. Just slow, heavy ones. The kind that fall when no one is watching. When strength finally asks to be seen. She wondered how long she could keep carrying everything alone. She wondered if asking for help meant she had failed. She wondered if this constant weight would ever lift. And then her child appeared in the doorway. Sleepy eyes. Small voice asking, "Why are you on the floor?" She wiped her face quickly. Pulled herself together the way she always did. Said she was just resting. Her child sat beside her without question. Leaned against her. Said, "I love you." In that moment something shifted. Not the circumstances. Not the struggle. But her understanding of it. She realized she was not alone in the way she thought. She was seen in the ways that mattered. She began to allow softness into her strength. She stopped apologizing for her reality. Stopped shrinking her story to make others comfortable. She started finding quiet allies. Other mothers. Teachers. Neighbors. Women who understood without explanation. They shared stories in fragments. In knowing looks. In laughter that carried survival underneath. She learned that bravery did not mean never breaking. It meant letting yourself be held when you did. Her child grew. And with every year the questions changed. Why does our family look different? Why do some kids have more? Why are you always working? She answered honestly. With care. With truth softened by love. She taught resilience without naming it. She modeled courage without speeches. Some nights fear still visited. Fear of illness. Fear of absence. Fear of not being there when needed. But she also felt something new growing. Confidence born from repetition. From surviving yesterday and the day before that. She looked back at the woman she was in the beginning. The one trembling with uncertainty. And she felt compassion. That woman had no idea how strong she would become. How capable. How steady. Single motherhood did not make her smaller. It revealed her depth. And slowly, quietly, she began to stand differently in the world. She began to notice the change through her child first. The way confidence replaced fear. The way questions turned into ideas. The way laughter filled the house even when nothing extra existed. Her child learned early that love does not arrive in perfect packages. It arrives in effort. In presence. In showing up again and again. School projects were built at the kitchen table late at night. Homework happened between dinner and exhaustion. Stories were read with tired eyes and full hearts. Her child watched her closely, not just as a mother, but as an example of what it meant to keep going. There were days when she thought she was failing, when the house was messy, when dinner was simple, when patience ran thin. But her child did not measure love in those ways. Her child measured it in consistency, in warmth, in the safety of knowing she would always return. She began to see herself reflected in small moments, in the way her child helped others, in the kindness offered without being asked, in resilience that felt natural rather than forced. One afternoon her child brought home a drawing. Two figures holding hands. A small house. A bright sun. When she asked who they were, her child said, "It is us." No missing pieces. No apologies. That drawing stayed on the fridge for years. Not because it was perfect, but because it was true. She realized then that she was not raising a child who felt deprived. She was raising a child who felt secure. Pride settled into her quietly. Not loud, not boastful, just steady. She stopped comparing her life to others. Stopped measuring success by standards that never fit her reality. Her definition of enough changed. Enough meant laughter. Enough meant safety. Enough meant love that did not leave. There were moments of unexpected joy. A promotion she did not think she would get. A compliment from a teacher. A stranger saying you are doing a good job. Those moments felt like small miracles, arriving exactly when she needed them. Her child began to ask about the past, about where they came from, about why things turned out the way they did. She answered with honesty and care, never poisoning the present with bitterness, never hiding the truth. She taught that families are built in many ways, that love chooses people, not titles. As the years passed, the fear that once lived in her chest softened. Not gone, but manageable. She trusted herself now, trusted her decisions, trusted her instincts. She no longer waited for validation. She had earned her own. Single motherhood no longer felt like something she survived. It felt like something she shaped. And in shaping it, she shaped herself. She understood now that her story was not a warning. It was an invitation. An invitation for other women standing in quiet kitchens before sunrise. For those counting dollars instead of dreams. For those loving deeply while carrying everything alone. She wished she could sit beside them. Tell them what no one told her at the beginning. That the loneliness will not last forever. That the fear will soften. That strength will grow where exhaustion lives. She wanted them to know that they are not invisible. Even when the world overlooks their effort. Even when applause never comes. Single mothers build worlds with tired hands. They create safety out of uncertainty. They turn ordinary days into proof of love. She looked at her child, now taller, wiser, carrying pieces of her courage into the world. And she felt something close to peace. Not because life became easy, but because it became honest. She stopped asking why this happened to her, and started honoring what it made of her. She became the example she once searched for. The steady presence. The unbreakable promise. There were still hard days. Still moments of doubt. Still nights when worry knocked. But they no longer defined her. Love defined her. And love had never failed her. She stood stronger now, not because she never fell, but because she always rose. Single motherhood was not the end of her story. It was the chapter that taught her who she was. And to every woman listening, every mother carrying more than her share, every heart wondering if it is enough, you are enough. You have always been. You are not alone.